Hey, welcome inside the Hall of Fame. It's Booker T, six-time world champ, two-time Hall of Fame with my man Brad Gilmore. Got a famous superstar on the line, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? He's an actor. You know what I mean? He's a wrestler. He's a producer. He does it all. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend, Stone Cold Steve Austin. What's going on, dog?
Man, what's going on, Boog? It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Hey, man, it's been a while, man. But, we still making the news, man. We still making the news. 19 years, December of this year, man. You and I, the epic fight in the Green Frog grocery store in Bakersfield, California. Did you ever, in a million years, think that would be an iconic moment?
You know what? When we did it that night, and it was, you know how it went? I mean, it was just bare bones. Hey, let's try this. Boom, boom. I mean, it really wasn't nothing said. We did it.
Action.
And we had a blast, and it was one take, and that was it. And we destroyed that store. I never thought then that it would turn into the moment that it's, the event that it turned out to be. People
you know what?
that.
You know what I talk to young people about is, I never thought about it either. I never anticipated it. But, Stone Cold Steve Austin was a badass. Booker T was a badass. At that time, it was, for me, it was character building, and I was learning in the WWE. And then I find myself in that situation. But my thing was always to go out and make it the best I possibly could make it. And you was the same way. And I think that's what, made that thing so special. You being on the fly, the one line, price check on a jackass. I always wondered, how'd you come up with that? Did you think about that before you said it?
I don't even remember, Buck. But the thing that's always been from you and me when we met down there in WCW, we always had chemistry. And that, to me, that was what made that work. Because two guys could have went out there and did it, but, and we both mattered. Our characters were developed enough. And we told a story inside that supermarket.
Man, that's what I say all the time. Wrestling, it is what it is, but more importantly, it's about making people feel. I always, as a baby face, when I was getting the hell beat out of me, I always thought about trying to make a tear come out of somebody's eye, make them feel that moment. I mean, you have, been in the business, just as long as I have. You went through several different phases, a few different characters. Did you know that, you were talent? Did you know that you was going to make it in this business, no matter what they throw in front of you?
I didn't know if I was going to make it because I was winging it one day at a time. When I come off that football scholarship at North Texas State, and, I got into wrestling school, and then Jared hired me, and I moved to Tennessee. And I just knew, but when I got in, I didn't have a plan B. So I better make it work. And I didn't get into the business. I don't know how you were, but I didn't get into the business thinking, man, I want to be the world champion. I just wanted to be a wrestler. But then when you turn into a wrestler, you don't want to jerk the curtain. You want to move up. And then when you move up the middle of the card, you don't want to be there. You want to be on top. Yeah. So it all kind of spirals, or, all of a sudden the ante gets up. It's like, if I'm going to do this, I want it all.
Yeah, you might as well be the best. That's what I always said. I never thought about the championships when I got in. The money, I thought about the money. but more importantly, I said you got to be, among the elite in order for that to happen for you. So I wanted to be the best, in the locker room. I hate to compare our time, in the business, our era, to this era right here, but I have to, man. I have to. What we went through, of course, was totally different. We learned on-the-job training, peeking behind the curtain, trying to figure out what works. We had that guy in our ear giving us the bug, saying, "Hey, man, hey, kid, don't do that ever again." What do you think about the business now and how it's changed?
It's definitely different. It's a lot more movement-oriented. As far as the in-ring product, I just watched Raw for the first time because I knew they were going to shoot an angle at the end of the program, so I watched that. And I watched Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee have a pretty damn good match.
Yeah.
And I kind of like Keith Lee a little bit more in the independent scene because he was like a wrestler guy. And I don't know if he's fit into the kind of character they've tried to create for him. I don't know if it fits, but the dude's talented.
Yeah.
That kind of match. And then I watched Randy work with Jeff. Man, he was working that arm. Dude, he took him to school. They both put on a clinic.
Yeah.
And then, hey, man, how about this one? Bobby Lashley versus Riddle, because both MMA backgrounds, Bobby's right hands were so spot on. That whole match, those big right punches he was doing, and I didn't know he had the belt. And he truly worked as a champion. And I was talking to someone from the show, and I said, that reminded me kind of back in our day.
Yeah.
It wasn't so movement oriented. You're telling a story. Wins and losses matter. And it was that hard hitting style, which I just mentioned in all of those matches, which really stood out in my mind. But the business has changed.
No, you know what? I totally agree with you, man. I totally agree with you. Taking a step back to take a step forward. These young guys watch that Randy Orton and how he go out and meticulously, make you get invested in what's going on. It's something that's it's artistry. That's what I call it's artistry of what we call the business. And nobody does it better, but the business has changed. One more wrestling question for me. Texas, Canada, always for me had the best wrestlers, man. Do you agree?
I got one more for you. Minnesota.
Forgot about Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, and there's probably a fair share out of Florida, but Texas, Canada, and Minnesota produced some of the Hall of Famers.
You're right about that. Can't forget about guys like Ravishing Rick Rude. I think he was out of that era. Kurt Hennig, he was out of that era as well.
Animal or Hawk. One of them was from there.
Yeah, definitely.
So was a good-looking dude. Z-Man was from there.
Yeah, and you know what? Texas. I'm choosing Texas. Texas is better than all of them.
I'm with you. I ain't gonna argue with Texas wrestling, brother.
Hey, man. I always talk to my students about preparation, man. Preparation is the only luck you're ever going to have. You retire from this business pretty much relatively young, man. 2003, 2004, you walked away from it. Did you know you was going to still be relevant 18, 20 years later doing what you're doing now?
Hell, I never figured I'd be doing what I'm doing now.
Come on, man. Come on.
When I pulled myself out of the business book, that was the hardest decision I ever made. And it took me 3 years to come to grips with that. And then, like I said, I've told many times, I went out to LA, thought I wanted to get into acting. I didn't like acting, but it was a means to an end, and I found hosting. But, I never had the, like a lot of the boys don't have great exit strategies from the business.
Yeah.
I did not have a great exit strategy from the business.
I never would have thought that. Thought that because I look at you and it seemed like you picked right up after you left the business. Right now we're here promoting second season straight up. Steve Austin, getting a chance to mix and mingle with some of the most high power people, in life. And it seemed like you was preparing for this. It seemed like you was ready for that moment. Or was that it? When the knock came, you were just ready to answer. Was that it?
I knew I needed to get out of business because I don't want to put myself in harm's way with that stack of dimes. I feel good now, but all those bumps keep adding up. And when you're dealing with that spine, that's something you don't want to mess with. But you know what, Book? We're in the second season of this show, and those people that came on season one, I got to give them a lot of credit because we shot a pilot, and I think we showed them the pilot, but they didn't know what they was getting into. And it turns out, man, they all had a blast. And the show did great ratings, right? We had a great lead in from Raw. And then on this season, great cast. But now they could see what they were getting into, right? Because they'd seen season one and heard about the success. But what I think what helped prepare me was maybe it was the wrestling business or the podcast business. But you know what? Each time I go out with one of my guests, it's a half-hour show. And so we're telling a mini story, right, about their life. And then we do a couple of activities mixed in there, and it's all about them. So we're telling the story. I want to get them over. They're already over anyway.
Right.
And we're trying to entertain the people through the TV screen. And if you can feel the fun we're having and we can put a smile on your face, there's those emotions you was talking about.
Yeah.
And if someone goes into a deep dive of some of the hard times they went through, there's that little down spot.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like a wrestling match, Book.
Nah, you said it, man. You said it. I think the wrestling business did prepare all of us for what we're doing now, because I know without the wrestling background, the entertainment, the character building, I would not be the person I am today. But Brad, I know you got something you
Yeah,
like. You seem like you're chomping at the bit to get in there. So go ahead.
I wanted to ask Steve about your show because I watched all of season 1 and some of season 2, and one of the things, you're a really, really good interviewer. The questions that you ask are questions that I have as an audience member. My question for you is, how do you prepare for those interviews? Do you do a lot of research? Are you planning out, for lack of a better term, spot by spot, like Macho Man and Randy, Randy and Steamboat back in the day? Or are you calling this in the ring? What are you doing?
Little bit of both, man. We're talking about straight up Steve Austin, but Broken Skull Sessions helps too. They surround me with a lot of good people. And on straight up, man, me and Booker worked 100 times. Hey, go out there with the plan, but we're going to call some audibles as well.
Exactly.
So it's doing homework, it's having fun. And when we shot the pilot, we didn't really know what the show was. They pitched it to me, and we thought it would be a thing, but we didn't know what it was. And so when you go out there and you do it, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, here's what it is. And now I feel comfortable in my role of facilitating the process. And going back to what you said, Book, the one thing that wrestling does teach you is kind of not to go back to this gimmick, a ringmaster. Because when you're working, you're doing promos, you're facilitating the process.
Yeah.
And so I think, the wrestling background, to also answer your question, I do my homework. I have a bunch of people behind me, but wrestling taught me how to handle anything on the fly and just go with it and make it something.
Awesome, man. We're talking about straight up Steve Austin, guests like Brett Favre, Charlotte Flair, Ice-T, Luke Cobbs. Got a lot of, like I say, interesting people here that you're dealing with, man. And there again, man, I hope to make it to your level one day. But what's next, even, in the future for Steve Austin? Do we got anything interesting coming up other than straight up Steve Austin?
No, we just did a episode of Broken Skull Sessions with Bailey. That's going to come out real quick.
Saw that.
It was a blast talking to her because Booker, she's one of the most entertaining heels in the business. She has been for the last year.
Let me tell you something. I like I said, I don't want to keep you all day and burn your ear up, but I said if I had 20 Baileys, I would not have to worry about anything because she's the one that she may not be great at anything, but she's like you, Steve. She's good at everything. Hey, man. That's what I say about Bailey, man. Anything you want to plug before you get out of here?
I had one other thing I wanted to actually ask Steve, if you don't mind. You were talking about watching Raw on Monday, the Legends Night, and you said they were going to shoot the angle at the end. That's why you wanted to tune in. Obviously, Bill Goldberg came back, challenged Drew McIntyre at the Royal Rumble. How do you feel, one, about Goldberg's involvement now? Because when he walked away from the business, he didn't walk away on the best terms. He was able to come back, kind of rewrite history for himself. How do you feel about his involvement? And then the second part is, how do you feel about guys who are from yesteryear coming on the show and having these high-profile spots?
One last run is what he's talking about.
No, not for me. But when Bill does that, I mean, he's put himself in a position to do it. So as a businessman, hey, I get it. And so it is what it is. And if, this isn't a knock on the current roster, and he can bring some eyeballs back from Attitude Era or WCW when they were kind of going against this Attitude Era. But it is what it is, and it's a business move by Bill.
Yeah,
if Bill wants to do business, he's going to do business.
And the way I see that also, if Steve Austin was to come back right now, asses will be in seats. And I tell those young guys, until you guys can duplicate that, until you can go out there and recreate that magic like a Stone Cold Steve Austin, just like The Rock say, know your role and shut your mouth, kid. That's truly what that is.
But I think they went off the air just a little bit early because it cut right into season 1 of my show, and I wasn't even expecting that. And I was like, so I think they cut off a little bit early. But one other thing on a note, because I haven't watched every single Raw or SmackDown for a minute, but Randy Orton, his work in the ring has always been really, really good, or should I say excellent. But dude, his character work right now, he is totally immersed in that character. He's cutting the best promos. He's having the damn good matches, and that guy sliced up some legends helped make him. But dude, he was spot on. I thought he stole the show just talking.
Randy is
So good.
One of the best in the business. I always say, man, he's my guy. He's the guy that everyone in the locker room should be eyeing. We talked about peeking, from behind the curtain, watching that guy. That's the guy you should be watching. Say, man, I always say, how do I get to that level? Randy Orton is at that level and that level above, man. Straight up Steve Austin, man. Straight up Steve Austin. Go ahead, Brad.
Hey, I'm sorry. Last thing, because I've
man.
heard this story. I know, but hey, we got him for 20. I'm gonna keep him for 20. No, hey, Steve, this is the thing I wanted to know, because I've heard this story. You told the story on your podcast a few years ago. I've heard Booker tell it on this show, and I've worked with Booker now for 8 years, and I've heard him tell the story a couple times. But there was some moment where you told this story where you and Booker were in a match, and you went rear back and you hit him as hard as you possibly could at one point, giving him some sort of receipt. What was that? Because Booker said it wasn't that bad of a punch. He said he took it like a man.
I barely touched him.
Boy, I tell you what, I'll never forget. I'm glad you asked that question, because me and Booker can look eye to eye on this. We might be miles apart, but we're looking eye to eye. Book hauled off and hit me with that big ass right hand. He knocked the trash out of me. And boy, I'm normally very, very forgiving and very patient in the ring when guys start throwing potatoes. But he lit me up so hard, instant rage come across me, and I sent a receipt like ASAP. Microprocess, here it comes. And I threw it with everything I had. The problem is this arm doesn't straighten out all the way. And he was just back far enough that I couldn't connect with him. But I was trying to knock his ass out. And I'm lucky I got such a good chin, or his working punch would have knocked me out.
Yeah, that's his comeback right there. That's what he wanted to get in more than anything. Hey, man, like I say, man, I know you're busy.
I knew, why'd you knock my block off?
Yeah, why'd you have to hit Austin like that?
Bro, let me tell you, that's called a measuring shot. The first one was always a live wire. I tell these guys today, man, throw up a hand.
Hey, before we go over there, Brad, one time we was down there in WCW, and Booker T, we got a great sense of humor, right? So he started spreading rumor, because back in the day, guys just didn't read dirt sheets out in the open. And, Booker T comes up with this rumor that he heard that he was one of the top 5 workers in the world. You remember what I'm talking about, Book? And he spread it all through the locker room. And guys were like, who put Booker T in the top 5? And it was like a shoot thing, because we're so competitive. And guys, Book had heat with so many guys, because all of a sudden he was one of the top 5 workers in the world. You remember that, Book?
William Regal hated me, man. He wanted to kill me. He goes, well, if you're in the top 5, what number am I?
What did you tell him?
I said, I don't know, brother. I don't know, but I know I'm hovering. I don't know what number, but I know I'm somewhere in there. No, man, that was the good old days, man. That was the good old days. We had so much fun back then. But more importantly, man, we're still relevant today. We're still doing what we're doing. I just did a video just last week with Bad Bunny, and that was really, really cool. Still being relevant by a young guy who watched me when I was coming up. Feel, that strongly enough to want to, put a song out about me. That's really, really cool. To see Steve Austin still doing what he's doing, still staying relevant in the game, that's an example for these young guys as far as, think about what's next. Today is today, but tomorrow, man, you better be thinking, because it's going to come really, really quick. So I'm always trying to teach these young guys, prepare, because that's the only luck you're going to have. Straight Up Steve Austin airs immediately after Monday Night Raw. So guys, check it out. Check out my man Steve Austin, still doing his thing, making these suckers, bow down. And I must say, man, it's an honor, man, to be a friend. I appreciate it.
Oh, we've been there for a long time, and I'm sure it'll keep on lasting. I appreciate y'all helping me promote my show.
Oh, yeah, man. Steve Austin, guys, Hall of Fame. Stick around. We'll be back in a momento.